Welcome back to Cooking for Moderately Lazy People. Today, we're going to be making cookies and cream peppermint popcorn. This is another rich, decadent holiday treat that I like to make, but unlike the orange creamsicle fudge from the last video, the richness of this will somewhat be balanced by the saltiness of the popcorn and the chocolate from the Oreo cookies. Let's get started. We'll start by popping two 3-ounce bags of kettle corn. We're then going to sift them and remove any unpopped kernels. We're going to keep them in separate bowls. You'll see why shortly. For now, let's set both bowls aside. I will go ahead and point out that we're only going to do half of the batch at first, so all of these ingredients that I'm about to list, you'll need double to complete the entire recipe. Now we're going to take 3/4 of a package of vanilla bark, almond bark, vanilla candy coating, basically whatever you can find, and we're going to put it into a double boiler. We'll move it to the stove to start melting the bark. While it's melting, we're going to take half a package of Oreo cookies, preferably the mint ones if you can find them, and half a pack of peppermint candy canes and put them into a food processor. We're basically going to crush them into a powder. You do want to take the crushed cookies and candy canes out of the food processor relatively quickly in order to avoid the powder forming into a lump. We want this free-flowing for the next steps. Once the bark is done melting, we're going to add in 3/4 teaspoon of peppermint extract. You probably want to warm this up a little bit so you don't shock the bark. We're then going to add the festive, not-so-secret ingredient, food coloring. For Christmas, I like to make 2 batches, a red batch and a green batch. This is why I'm doing everything twice with half the ingredients each time, so that I can wind up with the festive coloration. So I did run into an issue with this while filming this episode. The type of food coloring that I was using wasn't coloring the bark like I wanted it to, so I added so much that the bark started to look like it was about to seize. Subsequently, the bark wound up with more of a lavender color than red. Of course, once our cookie and peppermint candy cane coating is put on the popcorn, it kind of masks the color anyway, so it really wound up with more of a lavender highlight. Now, if you'd like, you could certainly do this recipe without the food coloring. It would mean you can double the bark, cookies, and candy canes and just do the whole thing in one batch. You could also do the same thing and use just one color instead of multiple. Once we finished mixing the food coloring in, we'll go ahead and mix the cookie and candy cane powder into the bark. We'll then coat 1 bag's worth of popcorn, separate it onto a baking sheet, and allow it to cool. While I'm coating the popcorn with the quote-unquote red bark, let's talk cost. As always, prices may vary depending on where you live. The kettle corn is slightly over $2 for a pack of 3 bags, so let's say about $1.50. The bark is about $11 for a 2-pack. The Oreos are about $5, and the candy canes are roughly $2 for a 12-pack. Let's say we're using about 50 cents of the peppermint extract, and the cost of the food coloring is effectively negligible because theoretically we're only using a few drops. That brings the cost to about $22 for a full batch. That's not cheap by any means, but you can take this to multiple holiday parties off the same batch. Once we have the quote-unquote red half done, we'll clean everything we used to make it and reset to do another run, this time in green. We'll put the bark into the double boiler and start melting it. Then we'll put the cookies and candy canes into the food processor and crush them into a powder. Once the bark is done melting, we'll add the peppermint extract and then the green food coloring. Again, because the food coloring I tried to use for this initially didn't seem to work very well, I used a different, much lighter green. So once I mixed in the Oreos, it didn't actually show up very well. There's a very faint light green highlight to this popcorn. Once we've mixed in our candy cane cookie powder, we'll cover the second bag of popcorn with this color mixture. We will then also set it on a baking tray and set it aside to cool. Once both of our batches have cooled sufficiently, we'll break them apart as best we can and add them into something large enough to mix the different colors together. And there we go, cookies and cream peppermint popcorn, the festive holiday treat that is immensely giftable. Since the next Cooking for Moderately Lazy People will go live after the holidays, and I've done 3 sweet recipes in a row, my next full-length video will be something more along the lines of a main course. Also, since my recipe book only has a limited number of recipes in it, if you have a recipe you want me to try, or even just a short list of ingredients you want to see what I can come up with for, feel free to put it in the comments and I can give it a go. As always, if you like the video, or the recipe, please feel free to like and subscribe. And don't forget to ring the notification bell for more weekly content. Thanks for watching, and bon appetit, and happy holidays.